All right. Well, this will be a little update on where things are at right now. We've got some new things to add to the parts pile and Blake's poor filling garage full of piled up parts for the car. First off, we've got this really slick Sicky shifter. Basically what this does is it moves the shifter position back 2 inches, I think? 4 inches, okay. Yeah, it looks more than 2.
Basically, it's the length of this little bracket. That's how far it moved back.
Which is really perfect because with the Magnum T56, it brings that shifter position about literally 4 inches too far forward. So we were going to have to figure out something anyway, and Blake got me a killer deal on the Sicky shifter through one of his friends. So that's going to be one less problem we've got to deal with later, and I think it'll be a really good setup. A lot of people say that those shifters itself are really nice. So that's one more thing added. What else do we have, Blake? We got the fuel system kind of complete now at this point, don't we?
Everything for the fuel system, basically from the firewall back, is done. So we've got bulkheads that we've covered a couple times that drop off the fuel at the firewall, the feed and return. So we've got to get the regulator and that stuff in place still. But we're waiting. That'll happen once the engine's set in place and we know exactly what the clearances are. So we don't put anything where there's an engine in the way. But everything forward is in place, or everything aft of that is in place. And this is a quick look. There's all of our connections. So those are the dual outputs, and then those are -6 dual outputs that drop into a -10 that run up, and then the -8 return. And then we have our main fuel level and main fuel pump that is on this big 4-pin Deutsch DTP. And then we have a 4-pin here that is the Deech Works brushless pump. So, and then all that wiring runs through over here. And then there's the Deech Works controller here. There's the MSD voltage booster here. And then that breaks off of this main fuse here. So those come in actually before the main fuse. And there's a relay that turns on everything and turns on the second, or the primary pump, the smaller pump. And then, yeah. That's basically it. All runs up to the front.
Sweet. I know we talked about that a little bit on the last video, but I think we're pretty much finished up now, which is, it's looking great.
Yep. There's a big mess of wiring up in the front passenger footwell right now. Ignore the huge mess that it is. That'll all start getting trimmed to length here very, very soon. We're waiting on some Deutsch DTM and DT connectors to get everything broken out. So all the wires are labeled, but basically we'll break those out into labeled connectors. So we'll print some heat shrink labels for them.
Nice. And
then I'll set up some spreadsheets that list what all the wires do when we go to actually troubleshoot things. So I'll do a final recheck of all of the engine harness stuff. We'll get those all terminated, and then basically that wiring picks up a few things. So it picks up ignition from the engine, or from the GM chassis harness, so that you're essentially what your ignition key is. So it'll pick up the ignition that ran the stock ECU. It'll pick up a ground there, so we'll pick up a big ground chassis lug for the ECU. And then it will run all the outputs. It'll run like your tachometer output, VSS, all that stuff that runs outputs to run the speedometers and all those things, or speedometer, tachometer, all your gauges.
Awesome.
All that stuff will run out of that bundle. There's some extra wires in that bundle that are all the speed hut sensor wiring and all that stuff. So that'll all get connected up. Then we'll drop the ECU in and power up the chassis and make sure that it reads everything we expect, and then we'll start connecting it to the engine.
Very nice. Yeah, looking good. Kind of showed me under the hood here too. We've got everything kind of set up ready for when the motor comes back. Speaking of which, it's very close. We got some pictures back from the engine builder today. He's doing final assembly, and the plan is just in a couple days to go pick it up and bring the motor back here. And then we'll probably see some big progress here with the car here shortly once we got the finished engine back under the hood here. Get miscellaneous stuff. I know that we got a couple things still got to figure out, like AC system, which we've got some for. We just need to get some coils and stuff, but there's probably not a whole lot left that we need that we don't have at this point that I know of.
Yeah, we need to figure out where to put a evaporator for the AC system. We've got to fit a dryer for the AC system, figure out all the lines. We need the adapters and everything to finish power steering. We need turbo oil feed, turbo drain. We need to touch up a few things on the charge pipes. That's fairly minimal. The biggest tasks to getting it running, we need to figure out the power steering stuff.
Okay.
That's fairly snug. And then the AC lines, that really shouldn't be too bad. We need to fabricate heater hoses in the fuel system. Again, that's not too bad. The big thing is going to be getting the oil to and from the turbo successfully. The good news is we can mostly use Supra stuff for that.
I think so.
There's nothing special on this that's different from a Supra. Power steering is going to be interesting because there's some high pressure lines that have to get routed away from everything. Luckily, there's nothing hot on that side of the engine, which helps a little bit.
Yeah, it's nice having everything over here cool. I'm used to having the V8 where it's like you're hot over here, and there's no room for anything. And now this side will be nice and cold and don't have to worry about burning things up, at least on both sides. So
yeah, that'll definitely help some.
Right.
We should be able to start, when the engine goes back in, hopefully it should stay there. We'll get the right bolts for the motor mounts, we'll get the alignment exactly where it needs to be, and then it should be able to stay. We'll get the oil feed and return lines on the turbo and get the heater hoses in. Then we should be able to mount the exhaust manifold and mount the wastegates, and then pneumatics. We've got to figure out pneumatics.
Okay.
So all the vacuum systems. So the feed to the vacuum distribution, the feed to the map sensor, feed to your brake booster, all those details. There's a fairly significant amount of pneumatics that need to go into this. So you've got your upper and lower ports through your boost controller, your blow off valve, all that stuff. So there's a not insignificant amount of pneumatics. We'll do all that with push lock.
Okay.
But there's just a lot of things that need to be right.
Gotcha.
So that everything signals and reads properly and you get the right signal where you need it.
Okay.
Pressure signal, I mean. But once all that stuff goes in, then again, that should be able to stay. Once the intake is powder coated and we get the fuel system in, that should be able to stay. The wiring harness, we've got coil packs. So we have D585 coil packs. We have coil pack adapter brackets. So they basically just jam the coils onto the spark plugs.
Those look like pretty nice ones I saw when you picked them out. I wasn't sure we were going to do that. When you picked it out, I was like, I guess we got to figure it. And those actually look pretty nice.
Yeah, they're pretty nice and they fit. Or at least they're supposed to.
Well, they're supposed to.
We don't have a cylinder head yet. We'll find out, but they should fit. So we'll get those put in. I've got to build a coil pack adapter harness. That's fairly simple. It's stubbed out up here. So that's these here, this CL 4 through 6. So that's coils 4 through 6. And then I think this one's 1 through 3. Yeah, so coils 1 through 3. So basically these just drop into the valley, and then we'll have little adapters that'll run out to the coils. So that's fairly simple. Those are smart coils, so they can be run directly off the ECU, which is nice. You don't need a ignition controller for them. The
Nice.
ECU can directly control them.
The Haltech is really going to be working a lot in this car, isn't it?
It's really not. This is a fairly simple setup. My Mustang's a lot worse because I've got 4 cams. You've got 1 cam of VVT. I have 4 cams. So I've got 4 cams that I have to sense position on, plus the crank, plus 4 cams I have to drive position on. So it gets, and then you do have you do have 1 VVTi channel, you do have drive-by-wire. That is something we still have to figure out as a pedal. I've got to get pedal mounts.
Oh, okay.
So I think you have a pedal, right? Did you buy a pedal yet?
No, haven't bought a pedal.
Okay. I'll send you a pedal. It's just CTSV pedal.
Okay.
Or CTS, Cadillac CTS pedal, 6-pin. But we've got to build a pedal adapter because obviously this was drive-by-cable originally. We're drive-by-wire now. There's benefits to that with cruise control and other things.
Cruise control? I didn't think I'd have that on this car.
Yeah, no reason not to.
I would love to have it.
We probably, on the initial phase, we probably won't get cruise control going initially. We're probably not going to pick up all the wheel speed sensors to do traction control right away.
Yeah, that's fine.
That stuff we'll circle back to. But it's capability we have.
Awesome.
It has ABS, so it's got wheel speed sensors.
This thing is going to be like a new car. It's been so long since I destroyed the factory cruise control. I won't even know what to do with myself. It'd be like a new car again.
Yeah. Basically, we have to get a brake switch, which you have. We've got to tie that into the ECU nose, and then we have to get a clutch switch. So somewhere in the clutch assembly, we need to put basically just a pressure switch.
Okay.
So that when you press the clutch, it closes the contact in the ECU nose.
Nice.
So we'll figure that out somewhere in here.
Okay.
I've never worked on a GM chassis. I built a lot of V8 RX-7, so I know how Mazda does wiring and how to connect GM wiring to Mazda, but I've never connected the other direction. So I need to figure out how GM did it, but I don't think it's difficult. They have a pressure switch, that's this. So I need to figure out how they did it, if we want to keep their pressure switch, or if we just run basically a 2-port pressure interrupt, a binary switch.
Okay.
Which what that does is it protects you from under or over pressure in your AC system.
Oh, that makes sense.
So we'll figure out whether we want to run a GM switch or if it makes more sense to just run a trinary switch and just have the factory, just basically when you hit the button, the AC, it sends a signal to the Haltech to tell the AC to turn on, and then we run the rest of it like a 70s car, basically.
Okay, sure.
A 70s car with a really fast ECU running it. But we'll figure out that. That shouldn't be too big of a deal. The hoses will be more work. I don't know, since we're going to put this on the YouTubes, if anybody knows, I don't know what we need to connect to these. There should be a way to connect these to universal fittings.
I would think.
I'm going to... Allergies are kicking me. I don't have the COVIDs. But we need to figure out how to tie these into standard connectors. I don't know what that is, but I haven't tried to yet. There's probably something somebody makes. We also need to clean them because it's...
Well, I took the AC off a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think the car was still naturally aspirated, so it's been a long time. So they've probably just been sitting there with
we need
filth.
to figure out if that's even serviceable.
I would think it would be.
Yeah, AC is fussy though. If any of this crud gets stuck in a capillary valve or something,
You might be right then.
So
well, we'll do what we need to, I guess,
out
when that comes to it.
But again, initially we're doing what I would call protecting the design for AC. So we'll make sure that we can fit lines, and we'll make sure that we've got a condenser in the front of it. Even if it doesn't initially get fully hooked up and running, we'll get it wired. We'll get the compressor wired. We'll get stuff ready. And if we have to change out a part later, we'll make sure that we can, but we just don't want to. Protecting the design essentially means we don't want to build ourselves into a corner where we can't fit AC because we put something in the way.
Yeah.
It's absolutely the same issue with the power steering, right? We have to dodge the intake manifold because we won't name any names, but somebody chose to do a GE VVTi head, which has a non-forward facing intake. Yeah. And that's a real pain in the ass. So I built that intake manifold, but it's in the way of the power steering reservoir pickup, which is a common problem. That's a GET guys have the same issue when they go with a forward-facing intake manifold. So there exist parts to work around it, but we have to thus work around it.
Yeah.
And those parts are made for like Supras and SC300s and things, and this is not that.
Yeah, this is one of the troubles when you decide to put something in that wasn't designed to have something in. You're really on your own to figure out a lot of this stuff. And since this is probably, well, to my knowledge, this is the only LT1 Camaro body style to ever get a 2J, it's going to leave us with stuff we've got to figure out like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we'll probably end up just fabricating a catch can, or the thing that the fluid goes into.
The
reservoir.
reservoir.
There's the word. Yes. Reservoir. We're just going to fabricate. We may end up having to just fabricate or modify an existing reservoir.
That's fine. The factory one was plastic. It went right here. It was pretty thin, so it didn't take up a whole lot of real estate. I don't know if it'd be easier to reuse that because
your power steering pump is right here.
Oh.
And there's an engine in between, so it's got to go over here somewhere.
And the piping comes over here too, doesn't it? So
so we'll figure something out. There may be something here with just an AN line, and then the return will come up, so it might be a little
there's
horizontal tank.
Not very much room here once that hood shuts. Right. It's almost flush here, but
it would be. We basically. I grab a piece of angle iron here. So if you think here, something like this square.
Come on, gimbal. Don't be drunk on me. Gosh, you freaked out last time, gimbal.
The gimbal's freaking out again.
Dear God.
There we go.
If anybody wants to buy me a new gimbal, I'd gladly say your name and put it on the video.
All right, but so if you figure something like this, roughly square, right? So it doesn't need to be very, very deep as long as it's got enough fluid to hold like half a quart. So it doesn't need to be real big. So you figure here's our hood clearance. So we can put a little tank here if we need to.
Okay.
But yeah, there's limited room. Once we get it all in place, we'll do some cardboard aided design and figure out where one will fit around all the charge pipes and the intercooler or the intake manifold stuff. But it's got to sit above the pump. It has to gravity feed the pump.
So it's going to need to be above it.
So it's got to be, the fluid level must be above the pump, and the pump is about right here.
Okay.
So then that tube comes out this way.
Yeah.
So
you might be right.
We might can stuff something here.
Either that, or I don't know if there's room. That's probably.
It's not going to gravity feed, though.
Okay.
So there might be room here. Your line lock is annoyingly placed at the moment for that.
Even if we did something the same size as like the breather tank or the.
Well, the other thing that could happen here is this wouldn't be that hard to move, especially right now. So the line lock might come up and go here.
Okay.
And then we could put a tank right here.
Sure.
That might be, and this line can get bent.
That might be a better solution because I think, a little bit of line we'd have to. I don't know if we could.
I've got line.
So we could adjust it and move that line lock right here.
Yeah, like this. Yeah, this line. You just have to remake these two lines.
I think we'd have a bigger room for like a cylinder.
Correct.
To put down here.
Well, and the nice thing is your low pressure is like here.
Oh, nice.
So your low pressure can come up and basically feed in. So it'll come in and feed in the middle of the tank, and then your feed side wherever is roughly level, just somewhere where the fluid level stays above.
Yeah.
We can feed the
okay. Sweet.
That pump. So that's probably what we'll do is we'll move this. We can clean up the rusty spots too.
Yeah.
Make Sean do that. He put it in, right?
Oh, he loves brake lines.
Yeah, he's a big
just ask him.
Yeah, especially on this car.
So. Okay. Well, sweet.
But yeah, so I think that, like I said, that's the little kind of stuff we've got to still figure out. The wiring's long enough too. So, the power steering, the turbo oil feed, the AC lines, the heater hoses. Heater hoses, we're just going to buy some silicone hose.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. These are the heater hoses, and the 2 points for the heater hoses on the 2J are like here and here.
Oh, okay.
So they don't go very far.
That's
and
nice.
They're relatively far away from hot things. They're several inches from hot things. So that really shouldn't be too bad. The only possible complexity is I think that one or both of those might be a different size than the parts on the 2J. So we'll find out.
Okay.
We might have to get like an adapter.
Yeah, something that steps up or steps down accordingly.
But that again shouldn't be a real big deal. If we have to, we'll run like a 90 out, like an aluminum reducer barb.
Sure.
And then a 90 back, something like that.
Yeah, that's all fairly simple stuff to overcome for figuring that out.
Yeah, that's not a real big deal. And we've got the rest of the cooling system sorted.
Nice.
Those are all done. So
awesome, man.
Put the gaskets in, find the bolts. Probably got to buy some bolts.
Yeah, dude, it's looking fantastic. I mean, every time I come over here, every time I see any update from you or whatever, I'm just like, oh man, doing such a good job. It looks awesome.
I'm hoping a couple weeks from the time the engine's in, we should have most of that stuff addressed. It's the beginning of September. I'm hoping to have most of that addressed by, let's see, it's the first week of September. So if the engine comes Monday, if I put the engine in next week, get it physically set in and on the mounts, then we start figuring out the other stuff. Probably 2 to 3 weeks to get that stuff done. That's October. And then we'll kind of sort it out from there. That
sounds good, man. It's going to come whenever it comes. It just is what it is. I'd rather always have it done right than have it done quick. Ideally, I'd love to have it on the streets before like the frost hits and stuff so I could get some break-in miles this year. But you know what? If we're at a point where it's just like, okay, we're good and there's a foot of snow out, whatever. We'll figure out a way, put it away. We'll address in the spring to get it running, maybe out of my barn or something, and we'll deal with it then.
We've got pretty much probably through October.
I think so.
In this shop before I kick you out so that I can park my Mustang here and not park my...
It's fine, buddy. We'll do whatever we need to do there.
At some point, I won't want to go get in my BMW when it's 8 degrees.
No.
BMWs don't have remote start.
Yeah, mine doesn't either. Of all the things.
Yeah, I had like a brand new BMW. I can't remote start it, so it's cold when I go out there, and that's fine when it's 50 degrees, but it's not cool when it's 27.
Not fine when it's very cold.
Yeah, so...
Unfortunately, Indiana's pretty unpredictable. For all we know, it could be 60 degrees in December, too.
Right, it could be 70 in November. We don't know. It could snow. But basically, we're going to get as much as we can possibly get done between now and the end of October, which is, that's 8 weeks, roughly 7.5 weeks. That's a long time, and we're going to get a lot done. I don't know if we'll get everything done, but it's highly likely that we should have it to a point where we can turn the key and see if it'll run.
Right.
And if we have a drive shaft, we'll have brakes. We may not have the AC fully done. We may not even have the power steering fully done. But we should have the things that it needs
to run
start
and drive.
Right. At the very least, then we can drive it onto a trailer to get it back to your house.
Correct.
Which is easier than pushing it.
Way
pushing
easier.
It is not any fun.
No, it's really not. We've been down that road a few times now. Maybe if we get lucky, I don't even mind. I can drive without power steering if I have to. I'd rather not. It's not good on the car.
I don't know if we're going to be to a point where I would recommend driving it like 30 miles to your house.
Okay.
As long as things work well, we should be able to get it out test driving. If we get it out test driving and it test drives great, then we'll take it around the block here a few times.
Yeah.
If that all works great, then driving it back to your house might be entirely feasible. Right now, I'm gonna say 80-20 trailer it.
Yeah, that's fine.
But we'll see.
Yeah, man.
Said my Mustang, I got it running, and like the next day I drove it 8 miles and it was fine. And then the next day I drove it, and then the AEM died, because that's what AEM Infinity ECUs do.
And you know what? Whether it's your mistakes, my mistakes, other people's mistakes, a lot of this has been a learning curve. When I started this, I had talked about running an AEM Infinity 6, I think. Mm-hmm. And then after your dealings with Infinity, we're like, yeah, we're not going to mess with that. And that's when we kind of jumped on board Haltech. And I think the end result is now we don't have to learn the hard way. We're going to end up with a much better product that'll...
Yeah, and the Haltech has some other advantages. Some of the self-tuning and PID tuning and stuff is better. The 4D tables are really cool. 4D as in four-dimensional, not 4T as in 40. But the tables are really good. The only real complaint I can give to Haltech is that they won't do CAN bus, like open CAN bus integration. They talk about it. It sounds like they want to, but I don't know if they don't have the staff, don't have the time. I'm going to write my own CAN adapter for it, since they won't.
Okay.
But that's really the only complaint I give them. So if anybody from Haltech watches this and wants to actually design some open CAN bus stuff that's not on just the Nexus, so that the elite owners can use it, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'm going to do it myself, and I'll sell it myself, because it's not that hard. But
well, awesome. Thanks for the rundown, Blake. And next time you see another video, I'll be on my way to pick up the engine.
yeah, stick it in this hole.
Yes.